Hi there, this is Brittany from By Brittany Goldwyn. I post videos about plants and projects, and today we are doing a quick garden project. We are talking about how to make seed balls or seed bombs. I posted a short Instagram video about how to make seed bombs last year, and I called them seed bombs, so it got flagged for violence and held in review for quite a while. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen with this one, because seed bombs are generally the more commonly used term for what we're going to be making today. So there are three things that I like to use to make seed bombs. One is clay. So this is a red clay mix. It's just a powder. Not sure if you can see in there. It comes in a powder form. It's pretty messy, and usually I would do this outside, but it's the middle of winter and it's pretty cold right now. So I've just got some workspace protection here in my sunroom, and I'm hoping for the best. In addition to the clay powder, you'll also want to have some sort of nutrient-rich compost. Now, this is just from a bag of leaf compost. I like to make my own compost whenever possible, but we do use a lot of this bagged leaf compost. It is created, made, and sold locally here where I am in Maryland Zone 7A, so I use it a lot around the garden. You'll need some sort of plastic baggie. You'll need a little bit of water, and then of course you'll need some seeds. So right now I have some coneflower echinacea seeds. These are a really good option for seed balls because they need cold stratified. So if you make the seed balls, you throw them out in the middle of winter, they will get the necessary period of natural cold stratification they need to germinate before spring. I'm also making some seed balls of some of my extra zinnia seeds I harvested from last year. I have tons of zinnia seeds. I'm going to be making seed balls for these and then giving them away in the spring because zinnias are an annual flower that do not need to be cold stratified. So to get started with my mix, I like to do about a 50-50 ratio of compost to clay powder. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's a really easy ratio to remember. And if you want to make a bigger batch at once or a smaller batch, just remember 50-50 is a good ratio to start with. Now, again, I must remind you that this clay powder is pretty messy. It can be kind of dusty. So the ideal space to work is a workspace that you don't mind getting a little bit messy, but it's really not too bad here. So this is about the same amount of red clay that I'm going to add here into this Ziploc bag. And I'm going to set all of this aside. Zip the bag shut, and then mix it up thoroughly. Now you can mix up your two dry ingredients in a bowl first. That's totally fine. I just like to get everything in the plastic bag to start with, because then that's the only thing that will get super messy, because when you add the water to this mixture, things do get a little bit sticky and harder to mix. So I find it's just easier to do it with my hands in a plastic baggie, because that helps to contain some of the mess, and you can just squish it around a bunch. But you do want to make sure the dry ingredients are pretty well mixed up beforehand. Okay, now the next step is to add a little bit of water, and this will turn it from the powder dry mix to more of a heavier, sticky clay mix. Now, you just want to add a little bit of water to start. So I would say that's probably like 1 teaspoon maybe, just estimated. So I add a little bit of water, and then I go back to mixing. And then I just continue to add water until I get the mixture to a consistency where I feel like I could pull it out and roll it up into a ball. So some of this is going to depend on the consistency of the compost you were using. Mine is a pretty fine compost, and it's also a little bit wet right now because it was sitting outside, so there is a little bit of moisture in the mix already. So actually with just my teaspoon, it's looking pretty good in here. Here's a closer look at what I mean with this mixture. You can see it's turning into much more of a traditional clay-like look with the water poured into it. I'll open this up and give you guys a little peek. looks like that. I'm going to add a tiny bit more water in and mix it up just a little bit. Just remember that if you do add too much water, all you'll need to do is just dump in a tiny bit more clay and a tiny bit more compost until you can bulk it back up and make it so that it isn't so wet and sticky that you can't roll it up into a ball. Now, before I open up the clay bag, I like to get some of my seeds ready to go. So this is just a echinacea mix with, it's got a lot of chaff in it too. So I'll pick out any larger pieces of very obvious chaff here, but the whole goal here is to just get a sizable number of seeds into each ball. So I like to spread them out because your hands get so dirty. Just kind of put them out here before you start rolling your balls, and set that aside, and then open it up. And I have tried doing this with gloves on, latex gloves. Garden gloves, work gloves definitely will not work because it's just, it's so messy and you really need the dexterity of your fingers. So I just like to get my fingers dirty. I don't really care. It washes off very easily. Never really have my nails done anyway. So what I like to do is make a ball about this big. So this is, I'd say, probably about an inch. And then I will just roll it around in the seeds, pick them up, and then just roll again to kind of push those seeds a little bit more inside of the seed ball. Pick up a couple more. This is definitely not an exact science. I like to just, get as many seeds in there as I can, especially if I'm working with something like milkweed, which I generally have a plethora of extra seeds to make seed balls with. So I'm just gonna roll this up until the majority of the seeds I picked up have been enclosed in the ball. And then we set it aside. Now, as I make a couple zinnia seed bombs here, I want to talk a little bit about why you'd even want to make seed balls or seed bombs. If planting seeds is easier, you don't have to deal with all the mess, all the clay. And the answer is you don't have to. I mean, I really like seed balls for things like native plants. Zinnias are not a native plant where we are, but they are something that, you can just scatter the seeds and grow them. When I have an excess of milkweed seeds, I like to make seed bombs and keep them in my car in a little bag. And then if I drive by like a sunny highway median or like an empty lot or something like that, I will throw the milkweed seeds out the window. It's a really great way to spread the seeds in an effective way, because if you're just throwing a couple of seeds out the window or even throwing them with your hand, they're not very big, so they're not going to get very far. But with a seed ball, it has a little bit of weight to it, so you can throw it pretty far and spread them out a decent amount. Now, I love to throw milkweed seed balls in the fall because milkweed needs to cold stratify over the winter, and I love driving by places that I know that I've thrown milkweed seed balls into and seeing if I see any milkweed growing, any milkweed sprouting. Definitely mixed success with that route, because a lot of the places that I throw them, they have lawnmowers come through and whatnot, but it's still something fun that I like to do, and it makes me feel like I'm at least doing a little bit to, spread some of our native plants around here in Maryland. Now, once you're done rolling up all of your seed balls, I recommend putting them on a towel, a paper towel, a cloth towel, doesn't really matter, and then putting them somewhere that has really good air circulation. So obviously the size of the seed balls is going to influence how long it takes to dry them. I've made seed balls that are a couple different sizes here. So what I'll do is just spread these out, and I will probably leave them on the table here and turn on the overhead ceiling fan to allow them to dry. That usually is going to take I'll leave them for like a couple days and then put them in a baggie. And once I zip the Ziploc baggie, if I notice any sort of condensation on the inside, that's how you know they were not completely dry. Now, what happens when they're completely dry and you throw them somewhere? They will just kind of sit until it rains, and then the rain will naturally disintegrate the clay and the compost. The compost you rolled into the clay will provide the nutrients the seed needs while it's starting to grow, while the clay just kind of holds everything together until you throw it somewhere and water goes on it. And then you just hope for the best. Definitely throw them in places that you're not looking for 100% germination rate. Throw them in places just for fun. It's a great use of extra seeds, fields, and whatnot. And the more seeds that you put into your ball, the higher likelihood of having a germination when you throw them. So until next time, happy planting.